You're listening to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast, your source of music news, stories, and 2-hour deep dive interviews with bands that have sold over 150 million albums. If you've been enjoying the podcast, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Now let's dive in to today's episode. Welcome to the Joel Martin Mastery Podcast. Thank you for joining us. We really appreciate it. We are joined by a very special guest. He's achieved a level of mastery as a singer-songwriter who's fronted the multi-platinum selling band I, Mother Earth, as well as Bonds of Mara and the Duo 2. This Friday, he releases a brand new solo EP. So welcome to the podcast, Byrne. Brian, how are you? And is it true that you once had a roommate who also went on to join a multi-platinum band?
Hey Joel. Yeah, no, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, so many years ago, actually 30 years ago now, which is kind of wild to just say, but I'd moved from Newfoundland to Halifax, and I was there for a very short period of time, like throughout the summer. Met a guy in Halifax that was looking for a singer for his band in a bar, of course. And he said, well, we'll get you up there. We've got a little studio in Richmond Hill at our bass player's place. And we've all agreed that you can basically couch surf with us all collectively and we'll figure it all out. I was like, okay, let's go. I'm going to do it. And one of the bandmates was Barrie, so the guitar player from 3 Days Grace. And Barrie and I bonded really quickly. He's monster guitar player, monster with melody, just a nice man. And so I ended up being in Mississauga at his apartment that he had with his sister-in-law and her 2 kids at the time. And it was a pretty interesting time, that's for sure. And nothing crazy. I mean, the kids were there, Leslie was there. It was just like it was like I was another part of that family, essentially.
Your Uncle Brian.
Yeah, pretty much. And we did as much as we possibly could together. Honestly, we wrote whenever we could. Barrie was really busy. He was always busy. He was out with April wine teching. He was out with rodeo at one point. He never stopped. That guy. That guy's a workhorse. So, from my perspective, it's not surprising that he went on to be a world-class rock star. He's a workhorse. He's a good man. Yeah, yeah.
And when you guys were living together, this is before I, Mother Earth and before 3 Days Grace?
Yes, sorry, both. Yeah, actually, yeah, both. So we played in this band called Claven together, and it was like, I won't even get into describing the music. There was some stuff. We're kind of moving in this progressive kind of Tool kind of thing, but there were lots of things written previous to that maybe didn't line up with that. But so this is, it's prior to I, Mother Earth, and it was actually at Barrie's wedding in I'm gonna get years wrong because again, we're talking 30 years, but I believe it was April of 95 that he got married, I think. And at the wedding, he said to me, hey, look, man, I'm gonna get busy. I'm not gonna have a lot of time for the band. I get, he had duties at home with his family and of course his wife, and not restrictive, in terms of, his wife that he married is actually still his wife. She's an amazing person, absolutely amazing. But he said at the wedding, hey, you should try it for I, Mother Earth. I'm like, and I was a fan, of course, a big fan, but I thought there was there's no chance that this is ever a thing. So I just, and then I went at some point after a bit of convincing from Barrie and a couple other people. I went and got my Sears passport photo done as a headshot, and I hand wrote the letter, and I dubbed a cassette of the stuff that we'd done with Claven, and I sent it off. And that was pretty soon after, Barrie had suggested that. And so, like I said, that was like April. And then I didn't hear anything back until August, and had almost, like, I didn't forget about it. Like, it was always in the back of my head, of course, like, oh, I wonder who they're going to get and who it is. But certainly didn't think that I was that guy. And then I was back home in Newfoundland for a wedding, and Jag had called my parents' place looking for me. And I picked up the phone. I said, hey, is Brian? Like, yeah. Actually, sorry, my mom passed me the phone and said, somebody on the phone for you. I don't know who they are. I said, yeah, it's Brian. He said, hey, it's Jag from My Mother Earth. And I actually said, F you, Philitry, which was another old bandmate of mine. I thought he was just messing with me. Hung the phone up, and then it rang back. And then we started getting together regularly. Myself and Jag initially was just a bunch of cover tunes, and he was showing me stuff that they were, writing. And I was just kind of, just a little bit like overwhelmed by the whole thing, to be totally fair. And then the rest happened. We're October of 96, I think. So yeah, again, 95, 96, I don't know, somewhere around there. But they said, hey, you're in the band. We were watching a Leafs game at Christian's place, and they put a I'm Mother Earth shirt on me and said, you're on the team. And it was actually Christian's birthday, so it was later in October. And then, obviously, a bunch of years passed. I think, actually, but not I think, I know, sorry, Barrie went out on the road with Edwin. So when the two camps were out sort of simultaneously touring around, Barrie was guitar tech for Ed. And I don't remember, again, I don't remember the years, but I know Barrie had come up to the house to hang out and had said, this band, 3 Days Grace, who we actually just played with as a trio, he said that, they reached out and asked me to join the band. And I remember saying, oh my God, that band is amazing. You got to do it. And so he did. And then the next time we saw each other, he was playing with them in Buffalo. We're at some festival thing there. And Barrie was the guy, and he's been the guy ever since. And obviously crushes it.
It's so wild. I remember the timeline. So in February of 2003, I road trip from Ottawa to Toronto for Canadian Music Week to see Mudvayne at the Cool House. And this unknown three-piece opens, and it was 3 Days Grace before Barrie, before any singles. And 2 months later, they release I Hate Everything About You, which becomes one of the biggest rock anthems ever. And then a little after that, the album comes out, and by the second single, the second music video, you see this new guitarist, Barrie, that shows up. So this is sometime in 2003. I remember Barrie becoming this presence with 3 Days Grace.
Yeah, and sorry, Joel, that's actually you're bang on, because we had just, I know we had toured all of Blue, Green, Orange, and we were we were out doing Quicksilver stuff. So that would have been when it all like lined up. But yeah, I mean, like that band, I mean, you could hear it like from day one. We played. I can't remember what campus it was, but it was one of those like college shows. It was like during Christmas, and like I don't remember the attendance being like overwhelming, like for either of us. It was just like kind of whatever. It's like one of those shows, but still like really fun. And I remember watching them going, "Oh my fuck, this is killer."
They just had the
And
songs already.
and I, they had the songs, they had like everything, like, and I hate to sound disingenuous, but there was something special about what they were doing, for sure. And at the end of the day, you don't get to do over 20 years and that many number one hits without being special. Like, it's not a thing.
You talked about sending in your your audition tape for I Mother Earth, I heard that there was like hundreds of submissions. So when you hear that, does it make you realize how crazy it is that you ended up getting picked from your demo?
Well, okay. So there's two parts to that actually. First part is obviously when there's like a like a cattle call on anything, you're obviously going to have stuff that's like completely out to lunch, and that's, you know what I mean, like some, I mean, some of the stuff that I saw, I was like, because they showed me some of the stuff, and it was pretty wacky. And then, of course, there were really incredible submissions, like stuff that I'm like, I don't understand how I actually got it. But the guy who I played in the band with Barrie, the drummer, Neil Busby, he's played with a band called Slick Toxic. And Neil is like probably one of the most like like I don't know how to describe him as a drummer. He's just like a pure precision perfection. Like he's just like an absolute monster. And so Christian was actually taking some lessons from Neil. And Neil had said to Christian, "Hey, have you checked out this guy who submitted Brian Byrne? You know, I'm been working with him in a band and whatever." So I don't, you know, I don't want to glaze over that because I think that's really important. Sometimes it is who you know in terms of introduction or being taken seriously or whatever. Because I don't think that at the time that I put that out to them that I was the best singer, technically speaking or otherwise. But Neil said you should really take a second look, and so his vote for me, I think, was definitely a solid conduit to being taken seriously. Because again, quite frankly, I don't think at that time that I was the best singer. I don't think I had much of anything figured out. And I still feel like it's, you know, it's a constant sort of road where I'm like always trying to figure stuff out and figure out how to get better, be better, whatever, even just like in little ways. So I think that there were some, again, some incredible submissions, like stuff that I couldn't believe. And then there was also stuff that was like, wow, like
Like a
it
bad
was like,
American Idol
like
audition?
yeah, well, you know, or like yeah, exactly, like some like dating app where it's like, you know, I don't know, it's just very bizarre. There was really bizarre stuff for sure.
Do you think it was the referral plus a solid demo submission that got you in the door? But then once they met you and they were like, this is a cool guy we'd like to hang out with, once they jammed with you and they saw like you have great stage presence, do you think it's adding up all the different tools you have in your, you know, in your bag of tricks? It was everything together that put you above everyone else?
I would like to think so on a good day that it was all of the things, you know what I mean? For sure. You know, like I don't want to completely discredit my effort or my whatever for sure. But yeah, I think it was like, I think it was everything. And we did actually hang out for a long time before they made that decision. There was no like rush to getting it done. And, you know, having worked with Jag for, especially Jag, as long as I have, he's definitely not somebody to like rush into stuff like that. You know, he takes it very seriously and wants to make sure that all the bits and pieces fit. And also they were letting go of a frontman or whatever. I mean, however it all happened, they were parting ways, mutually parting ways, I guess. And on like the height of their success. So I think that their need to feel safe with somebody as a guy who would get it together singing wise and a guy who would deliver and a guy who would show up. And I think that that was really important to them, as it was to me. Like I wanted to deliver, you know, but that was a hard situation for all of them. I can't imagine what Ed's went through. I can't imagine what they went through thinking about it. and I know all the stories, but still, there's like, it's a lot of emotional stuff. I mean, it's like a marriage breaking up and trying to figure it out, and like, how are the kids going to be, and what are we going to do, all that stuff, right? So I think there's a lot, like there was a lot on the table. So I guess more to your point, I do believe that it was a bunch of things that kept me in the camp, but certainly I feel that Neil should be credited for saying, "Hey, you got to take a second look, or you got to take a third look, or whatever it was." I have no idea, to be fair.
And you know that Neil is a great drummer because Christian is a great drummer, and if he's taking lessons from Neil, I mean that should tell you how good he is.
Oh man, I like Neil was, just a machine, like an absolute machine. And as you know, like you can see cats who can play like just, like really well, really hard, like whatever it is. But then you got those guys who have that skill set as well as the feel that is like completely undeniable. And so, Neil was a drummer that sounded like he was literally making music. Like there was stuff happening way beyond like his perfect timing, like way beyond.
I like to start these interviews by sharing with the listeners how the guests and I either know each other or how we ended up here today doing the interview. So in our case, I've been an I Mother Earth fan since I was 14. This is going back a long time, to date myself here, but I've been a fan forever. And as we go through your life, your career, your discography, I'll let you know all the different times where I saw the band in concert in this city. I bought this. I have all these I Mother Earth stories I'm going to share as we go along. But to get us started
Okay.
here, I got a message a few days ago from amazing drummer Tony Rabelau, who I know from being with Joy Drop back in the day. I was a fan of Joy Drop. And then more recently, he's become the drummer for Bedouin Soundclash, who I'm also a fan of. And I've had Tony on the podcast as a guest. And he reached out to me and he goes, "What do you think about having Brian Byrne on the podcast?" And I'm thinking, man, I've been a lifelong fan. I would love to. So he was the middleman. He was the connection that got us here today. So I'm super grateful to Tony.
Me too. And Tony is like, oh man. So like again, way, way back in the beginning, right? We had a rehearsal space. I think our studio slash, rehearsal space, whatever, Jag's bedroom. I had a bedroom across the hall, like in like the cinder block, no windows, no air conditioning, no heat. My futon barely fit in. And so like to actually get out of bed, I had to crawl in front of it to get out the door. But Joy Drop, they rehearsed two or three floors down. I can't remember. But just being there all the time, that's how I met, Tony and Tara and whatever. And I always loved Tony, like always. He was the coolest dude and just such a great drummer. And then we went out, we did shows together on Somersault. And it's the strangest thing because we haven't worked together until now. So it's like, literally like 30 years of stuff, and got a call from a person talking about like, what's the band that you want to put together, blah, blah, blah. And Tony's name came up, and not my suggestion, but as soon as it was suggested, I said, yup, Tony, 100%. Whatever you got to do, let's just do it. And we got into rehearsals back in April for these shows, and just same Tony, like just best dude, best player, hugs, high fives, laughs. You know what I mean? Like he just like he he's a dude, like an absolute dude, and I love him.
I forgot, but I moved to Mississauga for 11 years. I was in the GTA. And when I first moved there, I used to go and play his open mics in 2010 and 2011. He was hosting one of the biggest open mics at the supermarket in Toronto. So I actually met him
Oh,
at
yeah.
these open mics where he's giving all these musicians a chance to have an audience. And it was after meeting him at the open mics that I found out he was the drummer for Joy Drop that I was a fan of. So it was a cool moment, and we've stayed in touch. And I've gone out to see him with Bedouin Sound Clash, and I got to hang out with him. They were headlining the Dragon Boat Festival here in Ottawa a few years ago, and I wanted to kick this interview off powerfully. So I reached out to one Tony Rabalau, and I have some kind words sent in to help me here. So Tony says, I first met Brian when he started singing with I Mother Earth. My band Joy Drop and IME were rehearsing in the same building for months. That's what you were saying. Through the walls, I could hear the power of his voice in the halls, and I learned that he was a solid dude. When I first saw them perform, I was blown away by his stage presence. What a great fit, I thought. I hadn't seen him in years, and it's been amazing to reconnect with him, and I've recently had the opportunity to play drums behind him with a killer band and a great bunch of dudes. He's as badass as ever, and I look forward to more shows and hangs. His new single, Send and Receive, is a banger, by the way. Check it out. That's from Tony.
Oh, what do I say about well, I guess the nice thing is that, that's completely reciprocated. And then the only thing that I would add to that is that Tony doesn't play behind me; he plays with me, very much so. There's 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 none of that, um, and Tony's been over in Africa recently. He's down in LA with Bedouin, and I'm like, oh my god, I miss you. Like it's like so I can't. Well, that's nice. That's nice.
We're going to go through your entire career here, but I want to get started all the way at the beginning. Where does this love of music come from? Are there some earliest musical memories that stand out to you?
Yeah, actually, it's funny because this dude that I know, who's actually the radio guy for Send and Receive, John Dunham. He has a company called Anagram, and he's a really nice dude, and he does a great job. He was just at the ECMAs. Okay, so that's for anybody who doesn't know, the East Coast Music Awards, and I didn't go this year, but he was there, and I texted him and just said, "Hey, are you in the East? Is that okay? Like, are you good? Just a check in." And he said, "I'm sitting with Bailey Jordan." So Bailey Jordan is this young singer songwriter from, well, sorry, he's from Newfoundland, but he lives in Toronto. And his grandmother, Catherine, was my kindergarten teacher and my grade 6 teacher, and also my music teacher all the way through. And Catherine very much is the reason why I felt supported in pursuing music really young. I loved music. There's music always on, like at our house, in the family, lots of kitchen parties back home in Newfoundland. But Catherine was the earliest supporter of me singing. And so obviously when I got out of elementary school and I was in junior high and I was like, I want to sing rock and roll. And I want to sing, Alice in Wonderland show tunes. That's where it went from there. But she was that person. She was that person to, I don't like, honestly, man, I think, especially because, like, and I can go down a whole rabbit hole about schooling and whatever. But if it hadn't been for people, women like Catherine and a couple of the great teachers I had, Mr. Keogh, Harold Keogh, he was my lit teacher and advanced writing. Those people were the earliest to support what I was trying to get out of my head or out of my system or whatever. Yeah.
You're talking about the importance of having a good teacher, of having a supportive teacher. And I have a bunch of fan questions and comments that are sprinkled in here throughout the interview. And this comment, this is a story about another fantastic teacher. And I think you're going to enjoy this one. So this is
Okay.
from Sean, and it seems like he's from Newfoundland. And this is what
Okay.
Sean says. He says, Brian Byrne's dad was my grade 5 teacher at CC Laughlin in Corner Brook. It would have been about 99, I guess. So peak I Mother Earth. I remember there being sort of a pride across the entire school, even with kids that young, that Mr. Byrne's kid was this big rock star. Ha ha. Sometimes when he was in town, he'd show up and visit his dad at work. It's a cool memory you've unlocked for me. Thank you. That's from Sean.
Holy moly. Yeah. So, uh, my dad, I didn't have the experience of having my dad as a teacher. He was principal at a school and moved to another school, whatever. But in the in the school system, and he did a lot. And dad, he's retired now. He's still alive and well and whatever. But he was quintessential teacher, and he was, you know, you didn't want to make him mad. And it's funny because, you know, it, later on he just got, he got softer and softer and softer in terms of his approach. And I always, you know, I'm amazed that he could do that. But as a teacher, like, I mean, the reason why I know how to go hang out in the woods for like days on end and not worry about anything is because of my dad. Like there's lots of like dad was he was a solid teacher for sure. And we homeschool our kids now, and I appreciate those people that got through to the kids coming up through. And my dad surely was one of them, absolutely. And I say that with all the confidence and hopefully no arrogance. But his students meant like everything to him.
When did you go from loving music to actually playing guitar, singing, songwriting? How does that come along?
I think it's because I hated school. No, um when I graduated from high school, I grew up skiing, racing, and I coached and I instructed. I did a lot of climbing. And so when I was accepted into university, I just didn't feel ready. Like I didn't feel like that's what I wanted to do at all. I was like, ugh, like I just don't want to. And yeah, I was accepted into this like Bachelor of Science of Physical Education program, whatever. And I said, nah, I'm not going to do it. And so I ended up out in Banff, Alberta, and I was instructing and coaching and working in kitchens and all that kind of stuff. And I was seeing all these like local bands around play the pubs, and had a really cool roommate, Carrie, and she played guitar really well. And we would go to the open mics and play tunes, like a couple cover songs, whatever. And I started thinking, I actually, I want to do this, and I don't know how to do it. That's what I want to do. So I was like out there when I was 18, 19, went back home to Newfoundland when I was about 19, put together a band. We started doing originals and covers. And then I actually did have a chat with my dad, because he was adamant about going to university. But after my time away from home in Alberta and coming back, and I sat with him and I described, what I wanted to do in terms of music, he said, well, do it now. You should go do it now. And then school will always be there if you ever choose to go back and whatever. So I think it was around then, like 18, 19, and quite frankly, Joel, I didn't play guitar at all until the first I'm Mother Earth hiatus. And so that was like that was that was a new thing for me. And I still suck at playing guitar, but I enjoy it. And at least I'm at a point now where I can figure out how to voice at least what I'm thinking for the most part.
Does it help you with
And
songwriting?
absolutely, at least now I know enough about my voice that I can figure out where it is. So if I come up with a melody, I can figure it out for the most part. Like not all the time, but for the most part.
I've heard this legend of a 13-year-old in 1988 who joined a hair metal band. Brian, can you tell me about Pandemonium?
That's awesome. I don't know where you. um, thank you for this. This is really fun. So Pandemonium. Okay, yeah, I was 13, and there was friends that lived in my hometown. They were Rick Waterman, Chris Waterman, John Kennedy, and Todd Cook. Todd Cook was drummer. John Kennedy was guitar player. Chris Waterman was guitar player, keyboard player, and Rick Waterman played bass. Rick, who I'm still friends with, he's a dear, dear friend, and we we started playing like all the usual suspects of that time. But it was weird too because it was like really truly all over the map. Like I loved U2 and NXS, and but on the same side they like I love Metallica and I loved Bon Jovi and a pile of punk stuff. So we didn't like it was a weird set list to say the least, for sure. But that was my very first band. That was the first band. And played a bunch of like high school dances, junior high dances. And again, they were a massive, massive, massive influence on me to keep furthering things. And like so unfortunately Chris passed away when he was 17, and that kind of it, uh, it was just a weird time for us all, just as kids, like to lose another kid, our first time going through it. So I think that kind of put a bit of a pause on things, but it was super fun and super important. And I would say the guys who are still around would recognize that time as being incredibly influential, like not just in music, but in their life, our camaraderie. It was we were like the fucking Goonies, or, you know.
We have a fan comment. This is from Jack White. And because Jack White only has 54 followers on Instagram, I'm assuming it's not the White Stripes Jack White. So Jack White says, I think he deserves way more credit and publicity than he gets. He's got a freaking amazing voice and skills to know how to use it. That's from the unofficial Jack White.
I mean, I appreciate that, Jack. Like, obviously, like so much. It's funny though, music is all about it's perspective, right? I know that what I do and when I do it, I mean it, and I know that I put every ounce into what I do. How that lands with people or how they receive it is always going to be different. And the people that appreciate it, there is a true reciprocity in that appreciation. I try to, no, I shouldn't say I try to. I do. I answer everybody back. If they have a comment, or this got me through a tough time, or I really love this song, but whatever it is, like I feel that I have to, not have to, like I don't know how to explain it. I'm so floored by their reach out that I want to tell them I feel the same way about them, you know, like for being there, for saying what they say, for appreciating it. And again, I know like shit like that, you know, from an artist to a fan or whatever, sometimes may seem disingenuous, but I don't get to do this shit without people appreciating it. And quite frankly, I'm not I'm compelled to write music, but I'm inspired to write music when I hear that people go, "Hey man, you're on the right track, or you're doing a good thing, or you know, we love how this sounds," or whatever, you know?
Our listeners love to know that their favorite rock stars are normal human beings like the rest of us. So they like to know what jobs that you've had before, before the success with I Mother Earth. So I'm gonna rapid fire through a bunch of jobs, and you're gonna tell me
Okay.
if this is fake news or if you've had all these jobs, okay? A cook,
Okay.
a
Okay.
dishwasher, a bartender, a night cleaner, office worker, ski instructor, rock climbing instructor, jujitsu instructor. Are they all true?
All true.
Damn.
All true.
So you must have really appreciated when you were able to go full time as a professional musician with I Mother Earth and then with your solo career. It must have meant a lot knowing you had legit paid your dues.
Yeah, yeah, you know, obviously the family that I grew up in, working hard was never lost on me. Like my bedroom for most of my life after, you know, 12, I was downstairs in the basement, not because they hated me, but I was getting older and I wanted to put posters up, and I had a brother and sister. So I was downstairs in the basement, and every morning I could hear my dad get up at 5 a.m. Didn't matter what was going on. Didn't matter if it was the weekend or he had 2 weeks off from school or whatever. He was up at 5. You know, he's pacing around the kitchen making coffee and generally sort of getting the day going. So when that all happened, that was like, it was amazing. I still don't really stop. Like I was thinking when you asked me to do this, I was like, oh, the hardest part about this is going to be sitting still for 2 hours. like, uh, I love doing those things, and I, you know, I still coach my kids jujitsu. We climb together as a family, and coach a tiny club. And I think there's important balance in having those other things that calm your mind or still influence you. And but yeah, obviously like when I the like most of my jobs I actually quite like I was saying the other night to somebody, I was like, one of the best jobs I ever had was actually dishwashing, because I was just left in the back. They would just bring me stuff and I would just wash it and put it out, and that was it.
It
There's
was almost
no.
like a meditation.
Absolutely. I was just like breathing through it. It's like, I walk inside and have a coffee and go back in, get on the line, do the dishes, right? But I certainly I appreciate it when I was able to go, oh my goodness, I can be on the road now. But I did have like a massive gap. Like there's like almost 10 years where I was incredibly inactive in music. Actually, totally inactive. And it's funny because I thought that I had learned like some kind of lesson where I should just be inactive and pursue other things. And then I realized that that's not, I can't do that. Like it's not in me. I need music. I need to do music. It's a far greater piece of my life. Now, the things that I was pursuing at the time when I was inactive in terms of performing were all music related, but it was like, yeah, on tech startup stuff. So
We have a couple fan questions from Sean Siddons. And the questions are number one, was it tough leaving Newfoundland to pursue musical endeavors elsewhere? And number two, when did he first get into MMA training? It keeps him in great shape, and I can't wait to hear this interview. So, leaving Newfoundland, starting MMA training.
leaving Newfoundland to actually pursue music wasn't actually that difficult because I'd been out west in Alberta first, went back, and then left again to actually pursue music. So I think that I was really truly ready. I knew that I had to be somewhere else, bigger musical community. That said, there's a massive music community back home in Newfoundland now. It wasn't quite the same 35 years ago. Not that, in terms of writing originals, recording, releasing stuff, it just wasn't the same. There was a really good cover circuit if you wanted to participate. But yeah, I feel like I was actually just ready to leave. I mean, it was hard in that there were no guarantees and I had no idea what I was doing. So, but that was more, that's like a whole other pile of stuff. I mean, I think that anybody pursuing anything in any genre, any industry, if they have to leave the comfort of their backyard, they're going to experience that. So with MMA, I started training taekwondo as a kid. Like I was like 8. I did it like till I was a teenager, and then didn't do any of it for a while. And then I started, 14 years ago, 15 years ago, I started to pay more attention to jiu-jitsu. I was like, oh, this is interesting. This grappling, wrestling, choking, joint manipulation stuff. So I started to train jiu-jitsu 13 years ago, and sort of sprinkled in with that, I've done lots of striking, boxing. My Muay Thai game would certainly be not a thing at all. Like it's garbage. I'm not good at it whatsoever. But I love the problem solving in jiu-jitsu specifically, and I love the idea that it's a lot of thought over just brawn, and I will train it until I cannot walk. I love it so much. And jiu-jitsu community is interesting. Well, back in the day, I think that the culture is a little strange these days, not unlike music, in that the second that somebody thinks that they can make $1 from it, it becomes, just a whole other culture of chest pound bros and guys that just like want to, like, I don't know, like
They become an influencer, and they make videos, and they offer courses, and they offer their own protein powders, and they really try to monetize it.
Yeah, and there are cats out there, sorry, I should qualify this, girls and guys who are absolutely worth every cent in terms of like their instructional and what they do and their history and their lineage, whatever. But it's not like anything else out in the world where it starts to get kind of strange. But the practicing of jujitsu with the people that I came up through with and the people that I love, and my coach, Josh Presley and his whole crew, my buddy Gavin Tucker, who fights in UFC. There's a community there that is very real, and I'll never ever stop training. I knock on wood because I don't want to like blow my knee out tomorrow. But an interesting thing, actually. So Nickelback, we've done shows with in the past, and they're all beautiful, awesome dudes. I fucking love those cats. But Mike Kroger and I reconnected maybe 4 years ago over our love of jiu-jitsu, not music. He's also a brown belt in jiu-jitsu under Higa Machado, like down in LA. Like he's serious, you know? So I find like that to me is really interesting. It's like, yeah, we play music. Oh my God, but you love jiu-jitsu? Woo! Like it was like paramount.
It's funny you're making the point for me. I was gonna say that there's a lot of rock and metal musicians that do martial arts. So Maynard from Tool, there's members of Five Finger Death Punch,
Oh
of
yeah,
Seether, of Trivium. I think it's, you spend so much time on the road where you have all this time during the day until the show at night. And it's like, how do you stay out of trouble? How do you stay in shape? Jiu-jitsu is great. All you need is a mat, really. So it's kind of the perfect thing to
totally,
do.
totally. It was so when we went down through the states last year, we were down. We were in Florida for we were down like 6 months or something like that, and we were in Panama City Beach, and there was a really really great club, Emerald Coast Jiu Jitsu, and Tara, my wife, she was like a bit shy to go to class. Tara's also like a striped purple belt, so she's
Don't
pretty
make her
sick.
angry.
No, even on the best of days. So anyway, but she was just a bit shy because it was a new club and whatever. And I would walk over every morning. But then when I would come back, we had literally, Joel, we had four mats, like 4x4s that we had in our camper, in our trailer that we pull out and just like put down, and we would we would roll there. And I think I think honestly, like the again back to like because I think that like as musicians, we're all like a bit like ADHD or ODD or whatever. I don't know. Like I'm not gonna get into all that. But there's definitely like our minds are different. So I think the structural sort of understanding, receiving information, knowing how to process it, and then proof it out. I think in martial arts, combat sports is really important for creative types. I think it's important for everybody, but I could definitely speak to it being incredibly important for creative types.
Let's dive into your career with I Mother Earth. We've talked about you finding out that they're looking for a singer, you sending in a demo, auditioning, getting the gig. I want to go a little further back than that. When did you first hear of this band, I Mother Earth?
You know what's funny? Okay, so I saw a Rainbow Fall video on Much Music, like, whatever it was, like 93 or 91 or like, I don't even remember, but, a long time ago. And to be totally frank, I didn't like that song. I was like, nah, whatever. There was just other stuff going on that I was just so much more drawn to at that moment. Jane's Addiction, Soundgarden, Pearl Jam, uh, Misfits, like what, like there was so much stuff. So they were kind of like not really on my radar. When Levitate came out, I was like, oh, this is interesting. Like this is, I can get behind this. And then when Scenery came out, like I just I couldn't believe the songwriting, and I didn't know anything about songwriting. I couldn't put anything together. I wasn't playing guitar, but I could like just melodically. I was so drawn to it. There's a song on Scenery and Fish. It's called 3 Days Old. I remember being in my parents' car and driving. I had the cassette Scenery and Fish, and even though I loved the singles that were already out, 3 Days Old was like this weird standout to me that I adored, and I listened to it so much. I drove just so I could like listen to it and blast it. Like it was wild. And I remember when we started to do shows, and that was one of the songs that they didn't play. I'm like, oh my god, can we play that song? And they're like, yeah, okay. And so we started to put it in. But I became a real true I Mother Earth fan with Scenery and Fish. And again, there were so many songs on that record that were just spoke to me much more than even the singles. There was so much stuff on that, just the playing and the melodies, and it was crazy.
Yeah, I find that all the singles from that album just sound like hit singles to me. Like they're just great pop rock songs.
They are. They're amazing, and and again, like not to sound like, oh yeah, well I only listen to deep cuts or anything, but like because obviously, certainly, Astronaut drew me in. Another Sunday, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm more in. But then as I got into the record and got deeper, I'm like, oh my god, like Earth, Sky, and Sea, what the fuck is this? Like, come on. I mean, Songburst and Delirium, Sense of Henry, like all those songs are so special. So yeah, I've been a fan for a long time.
One thing that's amazing about the I Mother Earth discography is all four albums sound completely different. Like they're their own
Oh
entity, I find.
yeah. Yeah, it's funny because I actually, of all people, I just actually watched this like 2-minute clip of David Lee Roth, and it was like after Van Halen, during his like solo thing, and the interviewer asked, "Who do you think like made the Van Halen sound?" And he said, "Well, like obviously it started with Edward Van Halen, and I was a big part of that. We wrote all the songs, blah blah blah, blah whatever, whatever." He said, "But if you put up the new Van Halen record and my solo record," he's like, "you'll just hear what's there and what isn't there." You know what I mean? And I didn't think that was actually disrespectful. I just actually thought it was neat to understand, like Edwin obviously influenced them in the writing and how they were putting it together and what they were going to do. And then when I came on board, like I was a whole other completely different animal than Ed. So obviously that's going to influence what the outcome is, you know? And I appreciate that, like I certainly am not, taking credit for, shaping the sound of I Mother Earth after Edwin or anything like that. But it's nice to know that I still influence the shape of the sound,
And do you remember the first show you ever played with the band?
First show I ever played with the band was in Kingston, Ontario, at AJ's Hangar. That would be the first. Then there was 2 shows in North Bay, and then we did Somersault.
What do you remember from that first show?
And not a lot, honestly. And not for like partying or anything like that. I was so fucking wound up. I barely remember anything. I remember meeting a couple of fans from that show who are still fans, and well, I should qualify that, who are friends now who are still fans. Yeah, but definitely not a lot more, honestly. I remember the second and third night in North Bay, because it was so hot in the club. The windows were completely steamed up. It was like a smaller club, and it was like a pop-up thing before pop-up was a pop-up thing, I guess. And it was so hot. Like I don't think I've ever in my life experienced that kind of heat in a venue. It was unbelievable. So I remember the heat, and I remember the pressure.
So I mentioned to you before the interview that all my best friends have been obsessed with I Mother Earth since the very start. So all the shows that I've attended, they've also attended, and they've attended ones that I didn't even go to. And one of my friends submitted a question. This is from Serge Menard. His question is, where did you get the ideas for your wild and energetic moves on stage? Were you inspired by someone, or did they just come organically?
uh, so it's weird because you emulate so many people and so many things for so long until you kind of find your own thing, you know what I mean? Or hopefully find your own thing, I guess. And so I think that like the cats I look to, like, that I just, like, I loved watching, like, Eddie Vedder and Cornell and, Mick Jagger, Robert Plant, Bono, and all for totally different reasons. I think they all just, they were and they are just so special. I don't know that it was like a conscious, like, amalgamation of characters. I really don't think so at all. I just think that it just gets in your head after it was like, the fucking guitar is doing this. I'm going to do this. It's a quiet moment. I'm just going to step to the mic. And also, too, like, over the years of doing it, I had to start to think about when and where I was going to go bananas and when I was going to stand still and catch my breath, because it's hard. Like, if you're going too over the top and then you're just into a big chorus, it's like, oh, that's not going to sound very good at all. And there it is. It sucked.
Let's dive into your two albums with I, Mother Earth. So Blue, Green, Orange comes out in 1999. There's 3 singles. Summertime in the Void was a top 5 hit. When Did You Get Back from Mars was a top 15 hit. And All Awake was a top 25 hit. The album itself made it to the top 10. What thoughts, memories, emotions come back to you now when you think back to that debut album for you that really kickstarted this journey you've been on for the last 27 years?
When we started to do pre-production on Blue, Green, Orange, we rented a cabin up in Stony Lake, which is near Peterborough. And we were there for, I think it was like 6 or 7 weeks before we went to Montreal to track drums. Those times, to me, like, when we were, like, all living together and all playing together, like, getting up every single day and playing all day long and just working on music. And then when it was done, it was like a glass of wine and whatever it was. That's the stuff that I remember most. It was such a, I think that when we got out on the road, and, like, obviously my first experience of being on the road in that capacity, there's not a lot that I remember about that. Like, I mean, I remember, the bands that we tour with and making great friends, and there were certain, standout moments, like, for specific shows. But I think us living together and being together and, developing this thing that was about to go out into the world, I remember that the most. And then I would say, second to that, if you will, or was the first day that I heard Summertime on the radio, and then the album release day we did at CFMY at the Edge with Strombo. And so we did the interview, and then we went to the stage. It was a free concert. It was like, 10,000 people, or whatever. I don't know, something like that. It was big. Even that conversation with George is still a standout in my life and my career. I just thought that he was so not unlike yourself. Like, everything was considered, everything was put together. It's not just like, hey, what's going on? You eat many chips on this tour, like, it was, and he, as much as he asked things, he listened. Again, much like yourself, like, it's, and so over the years I've had a lot of, bad interviews as well. And so when you get a great interviewer that considers all of the things and considers your career, however big or small it is, but the time and the effort that you put into it, it's a big deal. So there are those, like, things, like, that first really big interview that was actually just so glad it was him at that point, for sure. And the first great big show, like, after the album was out, and the first time I heard it on the radio, and, but I think mostly going back to that time together where we had all of this time together. There was nobody else around. It's all we did, drink coffee, play music all day, drink wine at night. It's awesome.
I mentioned before I was 14 when that album came out, and I remember seeing the music video for Summertime in the Void. And my family did a road trip. We were doing a family reunion in Vancouver, and we were road tripping for day after day. And at the start of the road trip, I had gotten a blue CD Walkman, and we went into HMV, and I had enough money to buy two albums. And what were the two hot albums at the time? I got Blink 182, Enema of the State, and I got I Mother Earth, Blue, Green, Orange. And I remember trying to figure out which color I should buy, right? You had the three different colors. And I went with the
Yeah.
orange one. I don't know why, but I always had the orange one. And for this entire road trip, I'm talking like 30 hours in the car. The albums are, say, 30 to 45 minutes each. So in 30 to 45-minute increments, all I did was listen to Blue, Green, Orange and Enema of the State for days and
Just go
days.
back and forth.
And that's why I Mother Earth is so entrenched in my mind. So I thought you would enjoy that story.
Yeah, no, I mean that, stories like that are they're never old, and I don't go like, oh yeah, whatever. Like it's like it's so special to me, like it. I you know I so when you were 14 and I was 22, when that was like, the hot album, and I was, doing this tour, like I couldn't believe that I was doing this shit. Like, because it's not a cut and dry situation where if you come up with a band and you make it, it's like I walked into an established band who were touring with established bands, and they were all cats that I adored and listened to. So every meeting was like, what the fuck? What am I doing? Like, I can't believe this, And so I love these stories. I it's so cool, actually. So sorry, are you originally from the West Coast? Are you from
So,
Vancouver?
so I'm from Ottawa, and
Oh, you're from Ottawa.
I'm from Ottawa, and then for 11 years I lived in the GTA. I worked at Metalworks, a
Sorry.
recording studio. Gilmore from Triumph was my boss.
Of course.
And then during the pandemic, 5 years ago, I moved back to Ottawa to be closer to family when it was at a point where you didn't know
Gotcha.
if you'd walk outside and just die. Like we didn't know what this was yet. So I thought, if I'm gonna die, I
Yeah.
might as well be closer to family, just in case.
Yeah.
And I haven't left yet. So that's the story of Ottawa and then GTA and back here in Ottawa. On the strength of the three singles from that album, it goes gold. That's a big deal. Do you remember receiving the news that you officially had a gold album?
Yes, I do. Because the day that we played that show outside I was just talking about, the one that was in Dundas Square, or where the old CFNY, well, it was like they had a trailer while they were renovating the inside or whatever it was. So it was behind. So that day was the release of the record, and we did that show. And then, so the record company were throwing a party that night to like celebrate the release of the record, blah, blah, blah. We were actually presented with the gold records that night on the release day. So yeah, I remember it very well. Like, standing there, and they called us all up and gave us our records, and yeah, I gave mine away though.
Who'd you give it to?
My buddy Sean.
That's a good friend.
It's a funny thing, like I think I told you when we were sort of first, talking about doing this together. I don't have any physical copies of any of my records. I didn't really keep any of that stuff, and I don't really know why. It's not like some kind of big statement. I just like I was the moment that I lived through and in receiving it, and then the stuff that I've done since then. I remember it, or lots of it. Some stuff I don't remember, and so I live with that. And I go, okay, cool. And now because there's so much, video and YouTube and whatever, my kids can like look at it and go, "Oh, you were younger once. That's cool." Um, but these, little like, plaques and awards and stuff, they, my friends were more taken by that, and not in a like an ass kissy way, just like, wow, that's cool. I'm like, oh, you want it? Take it. It doesn't matter, you know.
Summertime in the Void is your most played song on Spotify with your time in the band. It has 760,000 plays. Why do you think people love that song so much?
I don't know. I mean, maybe it's because like it was, it was a big hit, um and so like the fans that all still listen to I Mother Earth, that era, or otherwise they're probably going back and maybe playing it once a week or twice a week. I don't particularly know, but I will say that one of the guys that was in the band during my time, that's not in it anymore, Bruce Gordon, who is another monster musician. Like, again, lots of dudes can play. That guy can play, like play. And I remember him walking in with that bass riff. And I remember him saying, I was like, listen to Chemical Brothers, and this is what I was thinking. I'm like, oh fuck, that's cool. And then so like everybody of course like jumped on, and it got finished and done. But I do think that bass line is fucking out of control. It's so catchy, so you could be a rock fan or a dance fan or whatever and still get behind the groove of that riff. I think that's
The jam in that song is pretty awesome too.
it is awesome. It has nothing to do with me, but it's awesome.
I can picture you doing your
Well,
dance moves on stage while that is happening.
yeah. It was the only thing I could do at that point. It's like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to shake maracas and dance. So, yeah. I mean, not to discredit, like, say Chris or Bruce or anything like that, like not in any way, but Jag's ability to put things like that together, like the jam sections and just weird timing and phrasing of things and whatever. He's special for sure.
The level of musicianship of all three of those other musicians in the band is astonishing.
Oh yeah, yeah. I'm a fan of so many bands. I mean, in so many genres. Like I always say, like I'm genre agnostic. Like I love punk, I love country, I love metal, I love pop rock, I love a good ballad. you know, Whatever. It doesn't. If it's good, it's good. I think about guys like Thornley or Martin or like and like they're mind blowing talents. James Black, like what whatever. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on about all of our great Canadian bands that just do such great work. But those cats like Jag and Chris and Bruce, they're second to none. Like I would never hold up any one of those aforementioned people above what those guys do. They will reign forever in like the mastery of what they do. Like I believe that. You know.
We have a fan comment. This is from M30407. That's the IG name. They say, I love this dude. Good for Sule is such a great deep cut. One of my favorite albums. There's a famous bass player on that song, is there not?
Yeah, Geddy Lee from Russia. I wish this story was actually more interesting. I mean, it's interesting enough that you know Geddy played on it. Like I
I give you
mean,
permission to
gee whiz,
embellish
like
it. Go ahead and embellish the story. Add some whatever you want to it.
well. see, that's the thing. I wasn't really included in any of it. So obviously, Jag and Chris and Ed, sorry, all three of them were actually, Bruce, they were all friends with Rush. And, had opened for Rush. And, Ed sang on Alex's record, Victor. And, so there's always been like connectivity. And Jag and Alex were, buddies and stuff. And so Jag got the idea. He's like, yeah, I really want Geddy to play this bass part for Sule. And we're all like, oh, cool. So, management's talking to management and labels and blah, 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 whatever, like all that, how that goes. And Geddy says to Jag, well, why don't you come over to my house and we'll record it here? And again, I've never met Geddy, and this is why I'm like, the story is not that great because I wish I'd met Geddy. But he's obviously like a massive baseball fan and a massive fan of vintage red wines. So, what do you get the guy that has everything for playing on your record? And so we bought him like this crazy bottle of wine. And to be totally fair, I don't remember what the actual baseball memorabilia was that we bought for him, but that's what we gave him for thanking him to be on the record. And it's so crazy, man, because like I was just saying the other day, so I just purchased two Black Crowes records. I'm a crazy fan. And I bought their new record, Pound of Feathers, and Amorica, which is one of my favorite albums. And, just playing them here. And I was talking about Rich Robinson and how I never even really considered it, but he just became this dude that like now when I hear it, it's like it could be a brand new song. I'm like, that's Rich Robinson. Like it's just so him and Chris, like it's so realized. And same with, and obviously long before, but same with Geddy when that bass track came back, I'm like, oh my God, that's Geddy Lee. There's no denying it. It's not like, this is a really good bass player. Who is this? It's like you just know that's who it is,
I did an interview with members of Wintersleep, who's one of my favorite Canadian bands, and
Such a good band.
Geddy Lee played bass on one of their songs. And Tim was telling me when they got the track back with the bass on it, he's
Yeah.
like, he went full on Geddy Lee. Like you could tell that was Geddy Lee for sure.
So sorry, is this recent? Like, did they record it with him recently? I didn't know that. I had no idea.
I mean, the album's probably 6 or 7 years old now that he plays bass on, but I'll send you the link. It's really cool. Wintersleep they're probably my favorite band ever, and they have so many good albums. And it's not
They're so good.
they just released a new album recently.
Yep.
And then I think there was a gap of quite a few years because of the pandemic. So I don't think it's even the album before the pandemic. It's before that. So it's their first album with, I think it's The Great Detachment. It's their first album with Dine Alone.
Oh yeah.
So there's a song on The Great Detachment that has Geddy Lee playing bass. They said as a band, we couldn't figure it out. We're like, all of them can play bass basically. And they said we couldn't figure it out. They're like, I'm sure Geddy could figure it out. And he just sent back a bunch of different takes. And he figured it out multiple times, and they just chose one of his takes.
That's amazing. Yeah, I love Wintersleep. It's such a good band. I was actually super stoked to see them release something recently, and quite frankly, I didn't know, but we came up in conversation together with somebody. I was like, oh, and so that's how I found out. But yeah, they're awesome.
I'm going to be seeing them June 20th at the Bronson Center in Ottawa that you're familiar with because I saw you play at the Bronson Center.
Yeah, I love that venue. That was really cool, actually. I like that. That was the first show that Ed and I did together. Was there?
That's the one I attended. Yeah. So we'll dive into that because I have that coming up a little later in the timeline here.
Okay.
This episode has been brought to you by the Women in the Music Industry podcast. It's hosted by music producer Rob Wells, who has worked with global superstars like Justin Bieber, Ariana Grande, and Selena Gomez. Through his 1 hour interviews, he shines a spotlight on the remarkable women who are breaking barriers and making their mark in the music industry. Some of his notable guests include Morgan Lander of the multi-million selling metal band Kitty, and Pam Shane, who co-wrote Genie in a Bottle for Christina Aguilera. If you're a fan of the Joel Martin Mastery podcast, you'll love the Women in the Music Industry podcast, which is available on all platforms. With Blue, Green, Orange, I just have a few notes, so you can take this however you want. But the song Autumn on Drugs, I love the
Mhm.
harmonies on the California Wave. The harmonies on that are chef's kiss.
Well, thank you. But that actually had nothing to do with me either. Like honestly, like there are things that I am absolutely willing to, take credit for and I'll stand behind. There are probably things that I would actually argue, but those harmonies were all Jag, and rightfully so to say. He just like, he crushed it. It was just so good.
That album, Blue, Green, Orange, was voted the fourth best Canadian album of 1999 by the readers of Chart Magazine. The top five included, so there's you guys, then there's Matthew Goodman, The Tea Party, Sloan, and OLP. So this is five legendary Canadian bands. So I just thought you would appreciate seeing your band and that album on that list.
Wow. Yeah, that's crazy. It's funny too because it's nice to see that those bands are still doing their thing. Most, Canadian bands have gone through some type of like, backlash. Like after, it's like, oh, Nickelback aren't cool, or Moist is not cool, or, you know, you know, Jeff Martin says stuff this way or whatever. Like, I don't know. I mean, there's always stuff that like floats around. But what I find the most amazing is that through all of that stuff, these are all the bands that are still left standing and doing it. I'm really happy to see that. Even guys who came from, legendary bands who are, still killing it like in other shit. A guy like Todd Kearns, Todd Age of Electric, like I was a huge fan, like, Limb Lifter, he's out with Slash and he's out with Triumph now. It's like that stuff's super cool. Like that's so cool to see. I celebrate my friends in that way. I will forever. It's so neat.
I just went out maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago and I saw the Triumph and April Wine concert here in Ottawa when I got to meet Todd. And I just interviewed Gil, the drummer for Triumph, maybe a
Yeah.
week ago. And Todd provided kind words for Gil, which was pretty cool.
Oh man, Todd. Todd is. We're in touch. Like we, text each other. Be a month that goes by. We're not talking or whatever. Just, he's busy as busy gets. But as a human being and a crazy talent.
You guys released the follow-up album, The Quicksilver Meat Dream, in 2003. There's three singles, Juicy, Like the Sun, and No Coma. It's a top 20 album. The album's very different than Blue, Green, Orange. Did you feel pressure to follow up the gold success of Blue, Green, Orange when you were writing and recording this album?
It's no secret that Jag is kind of like the juggernaut of like the writing. He's the guy. He produces stuff. And one of the things that I can safely say about not just Jag, but about the band as a whole is that there was never, nobody ever chased a trend. There was never that. There was no talk of like, let's make a song that sounds like this, or like, let's make a song that could maybe chart or what. None of that shit ever existed. It was like, let's make some crazy music and we'll figure it out. And you're always hopeful that the next thing you do is going to, measure up in terms of like, sales or spins or blah, 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 whatever. It doesn't always happen. But I also think that looking back on that record at this point in my life, I'm glad that we did it exactly the way that we did it. I'm happy that it didn't follow up Blue, Green, Orange per se, because I think that that's still, without sounding like an asshole, but I think it's still an important body of work. And I shouldn't say I don't care that it didn't perform like Blue, Green, Orange. Like, that's ridiculous. Obviously, again, you want, you want success. You want to keep going at the exact same level and have it received the same way. I get that. But I have zero regrets about that record, the making the record, and the way that it happened. I think that I admired my bandmates for standing up even to the record label and saying, we're not writing a song like that. That's not going to happen. We're not going to do an edit like this, blah, blah, blah. And, it's like there was a lot of good people at the record company, and I won't get into like all that nonsense because everybody has their own stories. But it's like, it's like shelving a patent when it's like, we're just going to take it because we don't want anybody else to have it and we'll figure it out after. So, I think that there's some weirdness around that record for sure.
It's a lot of people's favorite I Mother Earth record. So I think regardless of, maybe it didn't go gold like the previous album, but I think the body of work itself, the music holds up to anything else in the discography.
Yeah, and I agree. And again, not to sound like, arrogant or shitty or whatever, but I agree. I think that like what we did on that record, I'll be like an even older man at some point and go, I'm still proud of that. Like, I can still get behind it for sure. My kids sing those songs, and not because I play it in the house, but because they've been to shows and they've seen it. And so when I hear them sing things like off, Quicksilver, I'm like, wow. All right, well, if you're listening to TikTok for 4 hours a day and you can still sing this and be happy about it, then all right, okay.
Well, No Coma is actually my favorite I Mother song, period, across the entire discography. Is there anything you can share about that song, No Coma? Some behind the scenes, whether it's about the writing of it or the recording or the music, anything as a No Coma fan you can give me here that I can sink my teeth into.
The song itself, there was so much stuff that I had to record. Okay, so sorry, I'll go back 2 steps. We were recording, we did the drums in Morn Heights, and then we came back to Toronto and we were doing the bulk of the record at Jag Studio, or our studio in Toronto with David Bottrell. And then we went to Vancouver to the warehouse, the Brian Adams studio, to mix it. But we still had like a few bits and pieces, like in terms of vocals to finish up, and we still had a few things to like complete, like in terms of vocals. And there's 2 songs, No Coma and Passenger in particular, that I had to finish when I was in Vancouver, and then a small part when we got back to Toronto, even after the warehouse. And I was going through a hard time, and those 2 songs in particular also speak to me in a way that I'll never quite be able to relay or even understand. But because of my recollection of those days and what was happening, they're the most impactful. So and it's not the first time that I've heard that about No Coma. I've had other people comment on it and say that they're going through a rough time, whatever. So I think that just from a vocal aspect and delivery of a song that is, special lyrically, that Chris wrote, I think that I felt every single ounce of that song when I sang it. And I think that maybe that's why it helps translate to people and be emotionally connected to that.
So you mentioned that the album was produced by Jag as well as David Bottrell, who's a 3-time Grammy Award-winning producer who's worked with Tool and Peter Gabriel and Rush and King Crimson and Stain and Godsmack and Mastodon. He's worked with everybody. And I have some
Yeah.
kind words from one David Bottrell. He says, "It was great working with Brian. He has a voice that encompasses generations of East Coast power and charm. He had a Herculean task in filling the shoes of IME's original singer, and he did so with great enthusiasm and respect." That's from David Bottrell.
What? Yeah. David, David was like the kindest, coolest person to work with. I mean, we fucked with each other a lot. I, I'll share with you in a second, but I remember there's a line in one of the songs on Quicksilver. Jag mimics a trumpet, right? And the line is, and half along was slaughtered and sung. I spent maybe 10 hours in the studio trying to actually get the melody of this one line. I'm not kidding. Like it was ridiculous. Jag was completely over me. He's like, I just want you to fuck off out of my face. I remember David coming into the vocal booth and giving me a hug and saying, "You're going home now. We're shutting this down for the day." And he was that guy. He was the guy that was going to carry it across the finish line in the most kind, supportive, brotherly, like technical manner. Like he was amazing. I love David. And when when we were at the warehouse and we were mixing, and David was there with us, and we're in the mix room. There were many days that it was so we would come in the morning, early in the morning. We listen to what was going on. Adjustments would be made. David would keep mixing, whatever. Then we would report back at the end of the day and listen and figure out what we need to do, go home or go out for a pint or whatever it was. This one day, we walked in and him and Jag had a lot to do, and there was nothing for us to do, like zero. And it was beautiful. So Christian and I were like, let's go to the pub. So we went to the pub, the Irish Heather, which was just across the way. And we got pretty drunk, and we went back to the studio. And I remember before we walked into the mix room with David and Jag, I took off all my clothes and I sat on the mixing console and was like kind of slide my ass around the mixing console. But David was so fixated on what was happening ahead of him that he didn't tune in right away. And then when he saw me, anyway, he was incredible to work with, like just a dude. And he played that whole outro on Autumn on Drugs, all that piano. And I remember David sitting at Morin Heights, and he had one single can of Guinness. David didn't, drink much or anything. He was always very, but always having a good time. But I remember him walking out with a single can of Guinness, putting it on the piano, and playing that outro for that song. And so, as you tell me these things or remind me of these things, I do start to realize that there were more moments that I remember with these people. We we had sorry, it's a short story, but it's like it's so I had to drop off David and Jag at the studio early one morning at Morin Heights, and we were staying at a place like 2 minutes down the road, but we had like a little minivan rented or whatever. So I drove David and Jag, and it was in the spring, and that's when we were mixing Blue, Green, Orange. So it's pretty sloppy out. There's still snow, but there's lots of mud. And David already thinks that I'm a total clown because, like I said, we did fuck with each other a lot. And so I dropped them off, and they're getting all their stuff out of the back of the van. And then I peel out, and I know I I, I want to say that I didn't do it intentionally, but I don't think that I was bothered by it. And all of the mud flicked up from the van, and Jag and David were covered in mud, like head to toe. I remember David going like this, taking his glasses. He's like, and wiping his glasses. Anyway, I was in trouble for the rest of the day on that one, for sure.
You've mentioned David a few times for Blue Green Orange and the song Autumn on Drugs, which is on Blue Green Orange. Was David involved with that album as well, not just Quicksilver Meat Dream?
Yeah, so Paul Northfield, Paul produced or co-produced the Blue Green Orange record with Jag, and David came in to mix Blue Green Orange.
Ah, see, I didn't know that. I didn't see any credits on Wikipedia. So I'm learning. So that's good.
Yeah, and then David came on board to do the entirety of Quicksilver with Jag. Yeah.
So I love how Quicksilver, that album kicks off the very first song. I find like the vibe is so great and it sucks you into the album. I love the verses where it's just drums, bass, and vocals. And then the huge crunch guitars that come in eventually. Everything's so tasty. How do you pronounce that first song? Do you just read it 0157H7?
Yeah, it's the oh god, I'm definitely gonna mess this up, and I'm sure somebody will correct me on it. But it's the whatever's found in like beef in meat that is like oh gosh, what
Like
is
a
the
protein
thing
or
in
something?
beef? No, like one that's actually really dangerous. What's it?
A bacteria? What are we talking about?
Yeah, like a bacteria. Yeah.
So it has to do with the name of the album, and there's a concept there. So it's all working together as one piece.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Okay, this is funny. I'm gonna share my screen. I have a little surprise here that I think is funny. So I mentioned that all my best friends my entire life have been obsessed with I Mother Earth. And I have a friend, Eric Clermont, who is the most obsessed of any of the guys. Like it is ridiculous, the level of obsession. And I'm gonna show you a pic that is so old that he was underage. And you are just a baby here. So check this out. Can you see this picture?
Oh my god.
So that is my friend
Wow.
Eric, and this is you. And I feel like if I share this picture, I will get a get out of jail free card for life with Eric. So I'm showing this, so he's forever
Yeah.
immortalized. And a couple things that are funny on Quicksilver Meat Dream, the song Meat Dreams has four parts to it. And part three is
Yeah.
called That's Quite an Erection, Eric. And I swear it's written unofficially about my best friend. And he has a question. He says, I've seen many IME concerts in the last 25 years. The hiatus show in Barrie, the reunion shows at Sound Academy, the All for Once show with both singers, among others. Is there one IME show for you that sticks out more than the rest? And while we're on the topic of live shows, what's your favorite IME song to perform live? So that is from Eric.
Well, I actually, it's funny because I was talking about this not that long ago with a friend. We did a show at the Commodore in Vancouver, and I think it was around, I want to say it was like 2013. That one, and then the day that we played with Alice in Chains in Deer Lake Park. The show with Alice in Chains was more like a collective of all of the things. It was playing with one of my favorite bands in the entire world. It was Canada Day. It was absolutely perfect weather. And two of my best friends in the world were there, and they got me into Alice in Chains. So it was like just this really weird, like sort of culmination of things. I think that was that one and the show at the Commodore. I would put those pretty darn close together, and both in Vancouver, oddly enough. And in terms of favorite songs, I love playing No Coma. I love playing, and have always loved playing Eyes Us. That one to me is, I feel like it's just such an interesting, live moment. Even if it's only from my perspective, I like how that whole thing sort of unfolds. On the flip side, I hated playing Meat Dreams.
The whole 8 minute.
Hated it. It's not even the 8 minutes. It's actually it's mostly just me where I'm like, I can't count this shit. I don't know what's happening. More often than not, I would mess that up. It's not the song itself. Not at all. It's more like I'm going, oh, I can't believe I have to do this song. Like, I'm never gonna get this right.
It's funny you mentioned I Is Us. My notes for that song are it makes me do the stanky face. So the guitar when you do the you make me so with the guitars that come in, I'm just find myself doing the stanky face with the big crunchy guitars. Did when you played that live, did you find yourself ever kind of doing the stanky face?
Definitely,
Such a
definitely.
tasty riff, such a dirty, tasty riff.
Yeah, and conversely, when and now we know the sound of blue hours roll over. Like I was like in U2 La La Land. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, that because that song in particular, I just think has those aspects that we all collectively just loved so much.
In 2003, you guys played your famous live off the floor show in Barrie. You were set up in the middle in the round, and all the
Mhm.
fans were around you. And that was
Mhm.
so. This is widely considered the best I Mother Earth concert ever in the band's history. And that was the first time I saw I Mother Earth. So I drove my friends. I lived in London, Ontario for 1 year to go to school for audio engineering. So I was in London. My friends road trip from Ottawa to Barrie, and I went from London to Barrie. We saw the 4 hour show, and then they spent the weekend in London with me. So that is my first ever experience, which is considered
Wow.
perhaps the single best I Mother Earth show ever. So that's how you hook a fan is by attending that show. You so it was the band's last show for years, and there were rumors that a live CD and or DVD was being filmed. It never came out. I heard there were audio issues with the recording. Is that true or is that fake news?
I don't know. I mean, I guess it would depend on who you ask. Like, if you ask, Jag, he might say that because he's incredibly particular. He's not going to just like put something out, whatever. And I get that. That's no complaint at all. It's just I think that if that was a thing that was mentioned, it might be something that he discovered or he didn't think was suitable to release. But I mean, like, we've been sitting on footage and B-sides and shit forever. And like I keep like I tease Jag all the time. I'm like, dude, what the fuck? Like, put it out. And I say it with some, absolute truth, and then some just kind of ribbing. It's like, put it out. Like, we filmed the whole thing. And I think too, on that show, we all knew that we were taking a break. And so I think that every one of us felt an obligation, you know, to each other and to every person that got there to just like go for it. I mean, I don't even think there were any songs that we didn't play. Uh, you know, like maybe there's a couple off Dig that we didn't play. Like maybe I don't know. But that show was long as fuck.
Even Bruce Springsteen would have been like, damn, that's a long show.
Yeah, yeah. It's like, cut it out.
After that show, there was a hiatus for years. And then in 2012, you guys announced the end of the hiatus. You released 3 new singles between 2012 and 2015. We Got the Love, The Devil's Engine, and Blossom. All 3 songs show up on the charts in Canada. You guys then play 2 reunion shows at the Sound Academy, and we were there. We road trip from Ottawa to Toronto. We were there for the second night, and they were both sold out shows. And what's funny is Chuck from the Salads was also there the second night, and at
Yeah.
that time he didn't know that he would become a member for years. So we witnessed the same show where he felt like, man, I'm going to be in that band someday. He just had this premonition, and it eventually came true. So it's a big show for him, and we love that show as well.
It's funny because you asked me earlier about things that like I remember, or special moments, and like obviously even that reunion show where we had the countdown thing, and we started with the mothers, and it was like you said, it was sold out, and there was like some of my favorite musicians were in attendance, and it was a big friggin' deal, like for sure.
And it's a big venue.
And
Like that holds like 2 or 3,000. Like it's a big venue.
yeah, I think that one is like, yeah, you're right. I think it's like, I don't know, 26 or 27 or something like that anyway. And like all that stuff was filmed too. Just so you know, like everything. Like, where's that footage?
We have a fan question. This is from Rad Fab. And the question is, it would be interesting to hear his thoughts on trying out for vocal duties for Stone Temple Pilots. Is that anything you want to dive into?
Yeah, of course. It really wasn't anything, to be fair. So just being around and knowing people, like when Velvet Revolver were looking for a singer, I submitted a demo. Nothing ever came of that, which is fine, obviously. And Stone Temple Pilots too, somebody reached out to me and said, you should submit, blah, blah, blah. And somebody had asked about you and whatever. And I did. And I just recorded vocals on the tracks. Like there was no like in-person meeting. There was some conversation back and forth between management, but that's really, I mean, that really is the whole story. It was interesting to record vocals on that stuff because at the end of the day, like I love Scott Whalen. I think just so vibey. His singing was so vibey. But I quite frankly don't think that like after I recorded the stuff that I did and submitted, I don't think that I was a good fit. Meaning just two completely different vocalists, like sorry, I can't remember the name of the guy who is singing for them now. I can't. Jeffrey Gutt, that's his name, right? Fantastic singer. But his tonality matches up so well. I don't think that I would have been able to deliver that stuff in the same way. I really don't. As much as I would want to, and as much as it would have been cool to be that guy, I don't think so. It was like a shitty realization because I had covered some of those songs like way back in the day. And I always thought, I'm doing a good job of this. And then when I listened to the recorded versions of the songs that I submitted, I'm like, ooh, I don't know.
I was lucky. I got to road trip from Ottawa to New York State to see Fishbone open for Stone Temple Pilots, open for Red Hot Chili Peppers back in '99. So I got to see Scott while
I
he
saw that
was
show.
in Saratoga Springs. It was somewhere
No,
in New
sir,
York
I saw
State.
it at the amphitheater in Toronto.
Oh, in
But I
Toronto.
saw
So
that
same
exact
tour.
same show.
Same tour, yeah.
Same tour. Yes, yes, yes. So good. That was so good. I'm sure you would say the same thing, like Fishbone. How incredibly underrated could that band be? People talk about stage presence, and you see like a guy like Angelo is like, what the fuck? Like, what is this person? He's like
Very
he's like
influential to a bunch of bands that came after them.
heck yeah. He's like an alien. Like, it's crazy.
So to wrap up all the shows that my friends and I saw, we saw you guys at Edgefest in Toronto in 2014 with OLP, Eve 6, and Sloan. So a great quadruple bill with I Mother Earth. And then we saw you guys March 4th, 2022 with both singers at the Bronson Center in Ottawa. And since then, in the last few years, I saw them with Edwin as well because my friends have to go to every I Mother Earth show ever. How did the two singers gigs come together, which was like a dream for lifelong I Mother Earth fans?
That was actually something internal, with Ed, Chris, Jag, and management. I think initially Christian reached out to me and said, "Hey man, we've got this idea. What do you think?" I'm like, "Yeah, put me in, coach. Like, let's go." I didn't really need any more convincing or any more conversation. It was just like, "Yeah, let's go." Like, I'm in. I don't know how long, like maybe the idea was kicked around internally, like to get it to that point. I really couldn't say, but I was super excited to do it. It's like, let's just go out and at the end of the day, for me, singing those songs and being able to celebrate our collective, body of work is way more important to me than any other bullshit that may ever happen. Like that's just like there's people not knowing things. That's egos right across the board. I could give a fuck about that stuff. Like I just want to sing.
You mentioned to me that you have a Chris Cornell story. Can you share that with our listeners?
It's, again, all my
It's a
stories are
short, it's a
disappointing.
short story.
Yeah, it's a short story. So Chris Cornell is one of my favorite singers in the world. My kids always make fun of me because they're like, "Dad, you say that about everybody." I'm like, "Yeah," but he was certainly special. And when the his first solo record came out, he was also on Universal with us. I say that loosely. I mean, not with us. We weren't working together. But the president of the label said, "Hey, I got a surprise for you." I'm like, "Oh, what is it?" He's like, "I'm going to take you to the Chris Cornell show. We're going to go out for dinner, and then you're going to go backstage and meet him." I was like, "What?" And I had that, it's to this point, I met quite a lot of people, like honestly, and was always, relatively collected and okay, but that was not one that I could get my head around. Kept like thinking about like what am I going to wear? What should I say? All of these things that were just running through my head, and I couldn't get a handle on it at all. But somewhere like, and I've said this before, somewhere in my mind, I was thinking, well, we're gonna hang out, we're gonna like brush each other's hair, and we're gonna be best friends, and that's just the way it's gonna be, and that's okay. And so show's over, and we go downstairs, and Chris comes out to meet us, and he's walking towards me, and he's like so tall and so stunningly good looking, and just like the perfect outfit on. Like I like, dude, it's like a vision that people write about. And he goes there, he's like, Alan says, "Hey, Chris is Brian. Brian is Chris. I'm on the Earth." Chris is like, "Oh yeah, I know you, Brian." I'm like, and I remember putting my hand out and shaking his hand, going, "That show is really cool, man." That was it. And then I stood there with my mouth kind of, I'm sure, like a little bit open like this. And he kind of made some small talk with the other folks that were with. He's like, "Okay, well, I'll see you guys later." And I'm like, "Fuck!
We're not going to
Like,
be
what did I
best
just
friends
do?"
now.
We're gonna be best friends. But as and then I actually saw him perform at the Sound Academy for the reunion tour on their last record, and Tara was 8 months pregnant, and she wanted to be up in the pit. I'm like, no, 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 we're gonna come back there. The entire band was so good, but he was so good. It's absolutely the best singing I've ever seen him perform. It was unbelievable.
One of the all-time great rock singers.
It's funny that, like, one of the lines in one of his songs is "No one sings like you anymore." It's like we can all say that about that man, and he wrote that line. It's interesting.
So let's dive into your solo career. So there's 2 solo albums and an EP. We're about to add another EP to that on Friday. The album Tuesdays, Thursdays, and If It Rains comes out in 2006. And we have a fan question from Katie Hall. The question is, Brian is one of my favorite singers of all time. I always wondered about the title of your first solo album. What does the title represent? I've always been curious to know.
Okay. So it's actually like it is very specific, but it was like kind of my take on a Newfoundland East Coast thing. Like a lot of people back home will say, and they mean it, but it's just always kind of, I've always laughed at it. They say, "Oh my, it'd be some nice day if it wasn't windy and rainy and cold." I'm like, yeah, because it would be a nice day. So Tuesdays, Thursdays, and If It Rains is based off of that idea. So just like, kind of just like, well, whenever we get around to it, or yeah, it could be nice, but it's not,
It's an East Coast thing.
it very much so. Yeah.
The album had 2 singles, Far From Good and Oscar Thomas Finn, Wish You Well. The album hits #1 on the charts in Belgrade and Israel. Why these 2 countries?
I didn't know that.
That's what I found when I did my research. It went to #1 in these 2 random countries. Apparently you're a big star there.
I gotta get to Belgrade.
Belgrade, I don't even know where that is. Belgrade and Israel.
Dude, I have no idea. Like, I swear, I had no idea. Like, zero.
We'll have to look into that to see how that happened or if that happened.
Yeah, like, I mean, maybe there's some shows to be had in Israel.
I have some kind words here from someone you collaborated with about 2 decades ago. This is from Jason Pierce, drummer for Our Lady Peace. You mentioned these amazing Canadian bands that are still having a ton of success now. And this is what Jason says. He says, Brian and I became friends and started writing for a project together 2 decades ago when I was 21 years old. It never got off the ground, but we stayed friends. He's the real deal as a singer and a performer, and he's an amazing human. I'm honored to call him a friend. All my love, brother. That's from Jason OLP.
That's very kind. I love Jason. And yeah, I mean, I was so happy for him when he got the gig with the OLP guys. And Jason is an incredibly unique drummer and musician. And I could say the exact same of him. He just such a nice dude to be around. And unfortunately, so when we were collaborating, I don't, it was never like I didn't want to do this or he didn't want to do it. It was just like he was in London, I was in Toronto, and it just stuff wasn't working out, timing, whatever. But that's funny. Yeah, I love Jason. He's such a good. I can't believe all these like things that you're like. It's a little embarrassing, you know that, right?
What's embarrassing? Hearing that people love and appreciate you as a person and as a musician? I mean, what's embarrassing?
No, no, sorry, I didn't mean, it's overwhelming to hear it. And then to respond to it, because all I can think is that I obviously that feeling is totally reciprocated, and when I get told, and then I have to tell my side, then I feel like it is disingenuous, or it's like, you know, but I do love all these people and all these people that sent you the comments. It's really, really nice to hear, actually.
So let's
Thank
talk.
you, Jason.
Let's talk Bonds of Mara. So this was a super group with Sal Costa of My Darkest Days, Dave Benedict of Default, and Rich Bedeau, Finger 11. You guys released the single Lights Out in 2019. I think independently, this ends up going to #1 on some different charts. It has over 400,000 plays now on Spotify. People love this song.
Really?
Yeah, it's a hit. People love this song. Can you touch on that song? How that comes together? Apparently there's a Red Hot Chili Peppers Pearl Jam member that's a part of that song to begin with. Jack
Jack
Irons. Jack
Irons?
Irons. Yeah.
Yeah, mm, not really.
Fake news?
So, yeah. So myself and Sal ended up talking to Jack, and he super nice cat. He was like, you know, uh, uh, great to chat with, but he really didn't want any involvement with the project, and he was very upfront as well as considerate. Like, there was no, I hate what you're doing. He's like, I got this stuff going on. I've got this new album coming out, blah blah blah. So anyway, that was that. And then Rich, who, another great dude, great drummer, he had some issues going on and wasn't able to make it up at that time because I think how it goes, he was living in America, and he had met this girl who's now his wife, and they have kids together. So for him to leave the States before he got all of his stuff sorted, it would maybe be a bad thing for him. Now he's like, full citizen, blah blah blah, whatever, whatever. Anyway, so it was myself and Sal and Dave and this guy Daryl Ralph. We recorded a few songs out in like Vancouver way, and it's funny because I could feel right from the beginning that this wasn't a thing that I wanted to pursue, and that has nothing to do with anybody or anything. I just didn't. I was like, I let's do these songs. There were some shows. It just didn't feel right. And again, it's not a comment on anybody in the band. Just didn't feel right.
You got one great song out of it anyways.
Yeah, no, and and even during like the recording and stuff, like we had such a good time. Like we laughed a lot, like a lot. And Danny, who produced it, super great cat. We had like a couple of good shows, and then like just shortly thereafter, we were actually into like COVID stuff and blah blah blah. So it was like, ugh, well, it just none of it made any sense at that point.
I have some kind words from Sal Costa, and he says, the very first time Brian and I met, I just knew he was somebody I wanted in my life. He's such a free spirit and a creative person to his core. We clicked right away, and he's so freaking funny. We would just laugh in the studio. This is what you were talking about. I think it was one of my favorite parts of being in the studio is just how much we laughed. He also does jujitsu, which is awesome. He's my spirit animal. Now, so that's from Sal. And the only thing better than getting a quote from one member of Bonds of Mara is getting a quote from two members. This is from Dave Benedict. He says, working with Brian is a moment I'll always cherish. And honestly, I wish we had gone further and done other songs. The creativity and connection were instant. When Sal, Brian, and I first got together to see if there was any magic, we spent a weekend with Danny Craig, Default's drummer, who you mentioned, and cranked out some groovy, dark songs that still feel like one of the coolest musical collaborations I've ever been a part of. Brian's voice is so soulful and full of emotion that the rest of us could have farted in a can and somehow Brian would have made it sound cool. So that's from Dave Benedict. And the only thing better than getting kind words from two members of Bonds of Mara is getting the entire trifecta. This is from Rich Bedeau. Rich says, What can I say
All right.
about Brian? Well, to start, he's my favorite Canadian rock singer ever. His voice oozes soul and emotion. His stage presence is from another planet, and there just isn't another Brian Byrne out there. He's in a league of his own, and I'm his biggest fan. He's a family man, and he loves hard the people in his life. If you're lucky enough to be in Brian's presence, you know this already. I love you, brother, and I'm so proud of you. So that's from Sal, Dave, and Rich.
Jesus Christ.
We're laying it on thick, baby.
So, again, like what Sal said, like we would just get in the studio and we would just like laugh. Like we laughed so much. And then we had rehearsals actually where I live currently in Collingwood. When we did our first couple of shows, we had a spot up the road that actually Sal had arranged for us. And it was a gong show, and like not a like a partying situation. It was just a gong show. It was just like ridiculous. So we'd go to the beach, we'd go swim, we'd come back, and we'd rehearse for hours, and and it was really cool. And when I say that it wasn't going to happen, I don't mean, again, it has something to do with the Cats and band. It was a time in my life. There was a bunch of stuff going on.
It was a pandemic as well
just
coming on.
pandemic. It was all kinds of shit. There was all kinds of stuff going on. And Rich is, I've known him since our tour together. It was I'm on the Earth with Finger 11 back in '99. Actually, that was the first tour we did together. And he and I would go like hit the gym up and chat, and have always been friends. And talented cats. I like that Dave said that he would like to have done more. And then I can always revisit stuff, right? Like obviously, that's what we're here for.
We've made it from your earliest musical memory all the way up to 2025 in your career. And 2025 is when the Duo 2 comes together. This is you and your wife, Tara. You guys released 2 singles, Indigo, which has incredible harmonies in the first and third chorus, the song Love You More, which is great. If you're a sucker for a good ballad like I am, that's going to be your jam. And we have a fan question from Tim Randa. He asks, does Brian enjoy playing acoustic shows? So just a simple question.
I do. Actually, I really enjoy it. One of the things that I didn't get to do with I'm on the Earth was talk on stage. It was very much like next song, next song, next song, which is fine. Like that's how we ran the show. There was a lot of stuff to click. There was a lot of things to consider. And so when I started doing the acoustic shows, it gave me a chance to tell stories and also calm my nerves by actually talking to people, because obviously much smaller like listening crowds when I play acoustically, and I could like actually speak to people. And so it became this whole other thing that I really, 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 I really enjoy. I enjoy it. It's a different, just even the tempo of the set. There's an ease, I shouldn't say not ease, but maybe ease in controlling, if I need to take a second or whatever, that's not, part of like the big rock show, it's a different animal. But I do love playing acoustically very much.
I have one final quote. Brian, can you handle one more quote? It's one quote that rules them all here. Can you handle one more?
Yeah.
All right. This is the most important quote of the interview, because this is from the wifey. This is from Tara Byrne, your duo partner with the Duo 2. And Tara says, after 16 years together, what I love most about him is that nothing really stops him. No matter what life throws at him, the highs, the lows, the disappointments, he somehow never becomes jaded. He's always looking for the good in people and in situations. Sometimes that means people take advantage of him, but he leads with trust and kindness. and it never hardens him. He just keeps loving people anyways, and I admire that about him. As a musician, I genuinely think he's one of the most underrated singers in Canadian music. And yeah, maybe I'm a little biased, but I stand by it. The guy can sing, he can scream, and he can dance, haha, like nobody else. He has this way of making hard things look effortless, and I've often said if he can't do it, nobody can. He's also pushed me far outside my comfort zone, especially with singing. He never lets me stay where it feels safe or familiar. Actually, he does that in every area of my life. He's always challenging me to go further, to trust myself more, and to try things I probably would have talked myself out of. Don't get me wrong. There are definitely days I could kill him, lol, but we love hard too. He's my best friend, my person, and after all this time, he's still my one and only. That's from Tara.
So I think we're cutting out.
Yeah, nice try. Nice try.
Was she drunk when she wrote that?
She might have been. I cannot confirm nor deny.
Yeah, it's a weird thing to like, be like in this stuff for so long, like, in music. Like I've been doing it for, 30 years, and she comes into it, 16 years. And trying to sometimes explain how things are, you know what I mean? Like, like, well, we're looking at this and we're looking at that, and there's this project and there's that project, and sometimes, being an artist feels like a bunch of bullshit. Like you're just actually feeding other people a bunch of bullshit, but all you're ever trying to do is put the pieces together in your imagination that hopefully makes a career. It's like, like how do you quantify that sometimes? How do you explain it? And so then, to have people in your life that like at least either get it or put up with it is incredibly important as well, because we all want people to think that we're, leading with the best of intention, or, taking care of their creative self and honoring themselves and others around them and whatever. But again, sometimes it does sound like a pile of shit, like, especially, if something's taking too long, or, or it's not sounding the way somebody had anticipated, or whatever. There are all those things that like kind of make it sound like a bit of a joke. And so, she gets it, and I definitely do not let her stay stuck. Like, we're trying to figure out a song right now to do the next time we're out, and so she just did Heart of Glass by Blondie at the last run of shows, and she killed it. It was so good, and that was with Tony and Kurt and Stan and Maddie, myself, and I had two songs. I had Young Cardinals by Alexis that I want to sing together. And then the other one is an Echavandal song. And so she's scratched the Alexis song off the list because she feels very afraid of it. But I'm not letting her get away with not doing Echavandal.
That's awesome. So let's talk about the new EP. It's a 5-song EP. It comes out this Friday, May 29th. By the time the interview comes out, if you're listening to this, the EP is already out. So go listen to it. You were kind enough to provide me with an advanced link. I listened to it. It's awesome. There's something for everyone on there. The first single's already out, and it's showing up on the charts, which is amazing. What can people expect from the 4 songs that they have not heard yet that haven't been released?
I think it's a little eclectic. Like you said, like there's something for everybody. I think that's, a way of saying that. I did these songs with Don Lavandier, and Don is the lead singer from the Motor League. And for my money, from my perspective, probably the most underrated rock and roll band in 15 years for sure. He's a fantastic writer, great singer, great band. And so when we got together to do these, we actually recorded the whole thing during COVID. I just didn't really know what to do, or what we were going to do together. And I think I wanted this to be fun, like, rock and roll. I know there's, a couple of slow songs, but I didn't want to have like, just a, like 10 songs that are all, exactly the same. I want to be able to move around because, I do the duo, folky, country stuff. And I've done I'm Mother Earth and, Bonds and, doing this. So in my new solo stuff, I want the ability to go like, fuck it. This song is like a Queens of the Stone Age thing, or this song is like a punk rock song, and this song is a ballad. Especially this day and age, because like everything is about like a single song. As much as I love records, and I have records, I listen to them all the time, and I love the body of work. I like looking at the photos. I like reading all the credits. Like that's who I am. But I do have like a weird body of work. So I want to just put shit out there. And I think that people can expect that just when they get used to something, maybe it's something a little bit different. It doesn't mean like something amazing. It just means different.
My favorite song title on the EP is Fuck Shit Up. And I think your bass player had fun while recording that song because there's some cool bass on there. And we have a fan question from Scary Blairy, who says, Brian has shown adept skill in his songwriting, specifically in his ability to touch on various genres while maintaining a signature sound. My question is, Brian, what normally starts your creative process for a song? Is it a lyric, a vocal melody, chords, a guitar riff?
I think it's like all of them, honestly. The kids could be doing something fucking stupid. And I go, oh, and something gets in my head like a lyric. And then I go like pick up the guitar. Or sometimes like I'm in the shower, I'm singing something to myself and I don't know the song. And then I pick up the guitar and I go to it and I try and figure it out. Sometimes I'll watch a movie. Like been watching this show, this Tom Hardy show called Mobland, and I actually came up with this melody, but it had nothing it was just a thing. So if I were to say like I have an actual process, I'd be a total liar. Like I do not. It's like my brain is just like kind of turning. If something gets in it, gets stuck there, then I try and see it through to some point, I suppose. And sometimes not. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I really like this verse, and I'll like play it and sing it, and then put the guitar down, and come back 3 days later. I go, oh my god, what was that thing? And like, did I have coffee yet? Like I So I really don't think there's a specific process. I mean, if somebody went through my iPhone and just looked at notes, they'd probably think there was something very wrong with me. Just of all the stuff that I put in there, just lyrical ideas and grocery lists and websites and whatever. But I at least try to catalog all of the things. Where I'll do voice memos sometimes and walking around and singing to the phone. But yeah, I really don't think that there's any one particular strategy. No.
We've made it to the last few questions. You recently did a run of shows where you were performing I Mother Earth songs, and you also did shows with the duo too. What were a few of those highlights from those different events?
Playing the shows themselves, like the I Mother Earth stuff with the guys, was really cool. They're such a great band. They're just so hardworking and so easy to get along with. It was awesome. We had a few guests out in Toronto. So Jimmy from Strumbellas came up and sang Deftones with me, and We had Colin from the Trues come up and sing, and Sonaby came up and sang. I think, like in a nutshell, because obviously duo 2 is myself and Tara, but I think in a nutshell, being able to selfishly create an experience for me where I get to invite my favorite guys at the play, as well as like some of my favorite singers in the world, to come out and sing, and have my family there, and have all these longtime friends who support it. I think that that would be the highlight of all of the shows, because they were all present at all things in some way. Just, being able to, and I don't want this to sound, boastful, but having the ability to reach out to, Jimmy and Colin and Sonaby, and just say, hey, would you guys come out and do a thing? And they're like, yep, we're in. Like, that's like, man, is probably the only thing that my 30 years I can hang my hat on. The work, I understand, and the music, I get it. But being able to have those people still want to support you and be there for you, and say kind things and be creative with you, that's above and beyond.
You performing a Deftones song with a member of the Strumbellas was not on my bingo card for the year.
Jimmy killed it. He's such a great vocalist, and just being on stage with him, he's such a little live wire. The magic came from just us all loving each other and being together. I know it sounds really hokey and shitty, but it's true. Like, everybody's hanging out, and then all the band hanging out together, and then everybody captures the same energy, and I think that's what makes it sort of elevated. I know I even when I talked to Jimmy about that song, he's like, yeah, I'm in. I'm like, cool. And Tal, his guitar player, actually in Kadima, which opened that they're another fantastic band, his tone was so dialed in. I'm like, oh, this sounds just like the Deftones, actually. Like, it was wild.
What song did you guys cover?
Drive So Far Away.
Nice.
Yeah. Very fun.
I saw the Strumbellas in concert here in Ottawa a few years ago. They were another headliner at the Dragon Boat Festival, and man, their big hit is getting a ton of play right now for the NHL playoffs. It's like in like every commercial,
yeah,
when you tune into the games.
Yeah, it's wild. I mean, they're a great band, and everything is like singable, and it's like there's so much anthemic stuff to what they do. Like, it's not surprising. They're incredible.
When you look back on your life and career, what are you most proud of?
My life and career?
Yeah.
Jeez.
You can separate them, you can have them together, whatever works for you.
I think in my career, even when I was like I said, like inactive for 10 years, knowing that the things that I was trying to build and pursue was in the name of art, and then the name of protecting artists, and trying to figure out the mechanisms that might assist us all to be okay in a quickly changing world. And so that actually was my 10-year pursuit in that inactivity. And I'm still at it, and it's not, it's definitely not there yet, and things change so quickly, and so just trying to keep up on it. So I would think that keeping making music, trying my best to help the artist community, just not giving up, I guess, and knowing that people still have nice things to say to me, or say about me, rather. We're not going to all be liked by everybody, but some of the people that I really admire had some nice things to say, and right back at them, and that means a lot to me. That's me saying I did something right. And then in my life, I guess just kind of, for the most part, staying present and not giving up and keeping going, so my kids know that like I don't quit. I fuck up. I'm always going to, but I don't quit at fucking anything. And so in my life, they see that, with jujitsu and climbing and, other friendships and bad friendships that you have to let go of because they're taken from you. So I think in my life, that would be, yeah,
And now, when you look back at your life and your career, what are you most grateful for?
the love that stayed around. You can move through this whole space in a very, short period of time. And again, could fuck up on a daily basis, but the love that has stayed around and surrounding, yeah, that would be it.
If you could sit down next to your 10-year-old self and you could whisper words of advice, taking everything you've learned since 10 years old, all the lessons and mentorship and experiences, the highs and lows, the successes and failures, what do you whisper to cute little Brian sitting there to help guide him through this human experience?
In this question, Joel, I have all of the knowledge that I do presently.
Yes, and you go into the next room and there's 10-year-old Brian sitting there. Your current self, what do you say to that Brian to help him through his experience?
I go in and I say, here's two things. Here's the Joshua Tree record. Go write it. And here's a thing called Silicon Valley and .com and figure it out. Yeah.
That would make you financially wealthy for life, for sure.
Yeah, I would, not unlike, stuff that that I deal with, like now with my oldest, who's 13. Sometimes I have to remind him, like, look, man, don't be so hard on yourself. Like, this too shall pass. It's okay. And you're all right. And you're better than all right. You're talented, you're smart, you're loved. So just trying to, kind of keep those reminders out there. Like, hey, just don't press too hard on yourself. Be motivated, but don't, you know,
Final question. Is there anything you'd like to say to the fans that have supported you for decades now?
that's a really difficult summarization. You know, like what do I say? Like, thank you. Like, I mean, there's actually, there isn't anything that I can say that would actually properly convey um, the gratitude and the love and the respect. And to put it into words, I think would all sound, again, like a pile of shit. I always say, I've said it at shows, and I'm sure I'll say it again and again and again, but I don't get to do any of the things I do. And I don't even just mean like music. Maybe I wouldn't have found the confidence to, like, pick up jujitsu or start doing this or whatever, unless it were for, people who supported me and I felt good and strong and I was creating. So, I yeah, that's a hard one. At the end of it, I can just say, thank you. I love you. You're awesome. I will keep creating, but I don't know what you say, man.
I think you said all that needs to be said. People can see that you're being authentic in your answer, and people can feel your appreciation across the last 2+ hours. So as we wrap up, Brian, I want to take a second to acknowledge you for your lifelong pursuit of mastery as a singer, as a songwriter. I commend you for having a big vision for your life, for setting goals, working towards them on a daily basis. You've shown the rest of us what's truly possible if we also commit to working towards achieving our dreams. I want to thank you for putting out great music that's become the soundtrack to the lives of millions of people from around the world. Mine included. I mentioned I've been a fan since 1999. I'm dating myself here. And last but not least, I want to thank you for this interview, sitting down with me for the last 2+ hours, answering all my ridiculous I Mother Earth questions that I've been storing here for 26 years, 27 years. So, Brian, thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Joel. I likewise the deep dive that you do on this is really admirable, and I want to thank you for giving it such attention and love.
Thank you for the kind words. You're very welcome. So, to the Brian Byrne fans, the I Mother Earth fans, the Bonds of Mara fans, the Duo 2 fans, and the podcast fans, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next episode. If you've enjoyed today's episode, please take a moment to subscribe, like, comment, and share. Who would you like me to feature next for a 2-hour deep dive interview? You can let me know in the comments. You can also send me an email at joelmartinmastery@gmail.com, or you can reach out to me on all social media platforms at joelmartinmastery. So I am done. I am complete. I approve this message, and I'll see you on the next episode.